everybody. Welcome back. I know it's been a while, but this is going to be the first podcast of 2022. I know we're 3 months in, but here we are. We have Peter Whitley with us today. He is the national director of MUFON Japan. Of course, we also have Brian with us as well.
Welcome.
We're gonna take some time and talk to Peter about MUFON as well as some of his experiences, and hopefully we'll be able to even delve into some of his astral projection. I know that's
Mhm.
a favorite topic of the of our listeners. Um, Brian, did you want to add anything to the intro real quick since we're starting?
Sure. Just super excited to have somebody here with us who has some in-depth knowledge of extraterrestrial life, as we know it, maybe more. Super excited to hear your opinions and your thoughts on your experiences. We've had other guests talk about their experiences, I think, with the second kind.
I think it was the second kind because those were not that was something we actually went over last time. The different categories. So yeah,
Yeah,
those were definitely second kind. We
yeah.
also talked to some people about astral projection that we kind of went over too.
Went over
Cool. Yeah, I'm
a
always
bunch of
happy to
different.
talk about this stuff. The thing what I believe is just that the more people that are open about having these experiences, the better we're all going to be for it. I think there's a lot of people that have this stuff happen. They keep it locked up or they're too embarrassed to say anything, which is a shame for the community.
Absolutely. It's one of the things we actually see sometimes when we're reaching out for guests. People want to, either remain anonymous or sometimes they don't even necessarily after realizing that there are, a couple people that watch this or listen to it, they don't even, want to go on. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important. I think that's the main reason. One thing that Brian and I also talked about, like initially with the podcast, was doing this and coming at these subjects and these topics from an objective perspective of not
Hmm.
somebody that judges, but also somebody not afraid to ask the critical questions. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah. A
so
healthy skepticism is always warranted.
yes, and so we here we are. Looks like it's actually just after midnight, 12:24 a.m. March 12th, and we're here with Peter Whitley. Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell
Yeah,
us a little bit
I'm
about yourself, I should say.
Yeah, I'm originally from the U.S., Washington State.
Okay.
Um, Born and raised there, relatively rural place. Went to university, studied to become a counselor. Um, right after university, by chance, I came over to Japan for a year. Enjoyed it. Just one of those things you get out of university, do some traveling. Went
Mm-hmm.
back to the states, did my counseling thing. Um, what I found was every vacation I was coming back to Japan, right? Spending all my money coming back to Japan. And so 14 years ago, I decided to just pull the trigger and move here. Been living here ever since. Now I have a wife and son. I'm a permanent resident here. Yeah. That was my journey from the States to Japan.
Fascinating. And so tell us a little bit about your journey from just a regular person to a believer. Like what initially brought you in contact, I guess like I said, maybe you
Mhm.
could the easy way would be to kind of walk us quickly and then slowly through your journey from just a guy in Washington State in a rural area out there to the
Mhm.
national director of MUFON Japan.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'll give you the brief version and we can go rewind it and talk about any of this stuff. When I was 17, I had a conscious, what they would call alien abduction out of my parents' home there in Washington. It happened again when I was 18. At the time, I knew they were real, I knew they happened. I was always open about it. Would tell people, at a party or whatever, Halloween. And they'd always say, "Oh, you're full of it." And I'd say, "No, I swear it happened." I always believed it happened. But it wasn't something that was a part of me. I
Now, why do
wasn't
you
in.
think that was? Like, based on here's this is a question I wanted to especially
Yeah.
want to ask is why do you think like you went from you had these experiences, which I would argue are extremely unique experiences,
Hmm.
uh, to an idea of they're not that big of a deal. Yeah, I'll tell people about them, but it's whatever. You can almost shrug them off. To
Hmm.
all those
Yeah.
to where you are now, you know? Like what changed? What made it not only what changed, but like
Yeah.
what was it like a feeling of just suppressing the experiences that
Hmm.
made you not think they're a big deal or
Yeah, that's a great question, and we have a little bit of insight into that as researchers. Now that been a UFO researcher for a while. Um, for some people, that it is traumatic, and I would say it was traumatic for me, and there's a suppression. But however, in my case, I did not suppress it. What we see in a lot of people, not just quote abductees or contactees, but even people who have had close sightings of craft, is that this phenomenon will happen. They will recognize it, and then it will just go in a compartment in the back of their mind until something triggers the switch that makes them realize, wow, that was fucked up. And that's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. Basically, 14 years ago, shortly after I came to Japan, I saw a children's art exhibition. I saw a big poster a kid had made. There was a UFO with a gray alien head, and that was my trigger. That was when I thought, that was really odd. I should look into this. Yeah, but we see that happen with a lot of people. Yeah, it's
I don't
part of
think
the
that's
phenomenon.
even you. And I don't think that's even unique. I would even hazard to say I don't think that's unique to even abductees. That's something that can even happen with trauma, even there, you know, like PTSD,
Yeah,
for instance, people in war. So I can see
absolutely,
I totally understand where you're coming from. So
absolutely. Yeah,
tell us a little bit about. So you said you mentioned before that you saw some children's pictures, you know, and then
yeah,
it triggered something that back to you that kind of flipped the switch. So
yeah.
relate that relate the pictures to your first and second experience. I mean, how those things kind of meshed and how it really triggered for you.
Sure, sure. Um, Let me just tell you, run down real quick what happened the first and second time. The
Yeah.
first time I was abducted, I was getting ready to go to bed. Um, a blue light triangulated through my closed bedroom window to a pinpoint at my midsection. And instantaneously, two small, what you would call gray aliens appeared. One of which seemed to be headed towards my bedroom door. The other was standing right there, just staring at me. Now, the funny thing is, I could tell they were surprised. Um, once you go into the abduction phenomenon, you quickly realize everyone reports that it's telepathic communication. So telepathically, I could tell they were surprised. Now, like any rational person, I was scared shitless,
Could you
and so I,
move?
huh?
Could you move? I don't mean to interrupt, but a lot of
Yeah.
things. There's certain things that I like to ask about, like get really in
Interrupt
depth
me.
with some of these things.
Yeah,
Space, because I wanna like when I'm talking to people like yourself who've had genuine experiences. I
yeah,
look for probably something that you look for as well as just
yeah,
even though they're unique experiences, I look for similarities. You
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
that's something I was wondering. Like, could you move? Did you feel like you were stuck? You know, like I've heard of
yeah,
before.
yeah. Please interrupt me too at any time. I talk about this stuff with such a cavalier attitude because I've been at it for so long. I mention stuff like this, and I don't even, I don't leave out little details. So this guy was standing next to me. My instinct, of course, was to jump out of bed, get the hell out of there. Now, I
Was he
started
distinctively like a male character or
the the gray.
yeah?
Yeah.
Uh, at that time, I couldn't discern if they were male, masculine, or feminine. No,
Okay.
but my instinct was to jump, so I started to jump. And if you can imagine, you're gonna jump out of bed, kind of half of your body goes up, and the rest of your body follows. Half of my body went up, and I froze, as in they froze me with half of
Midair.
my body in midair. Okay. At that point, they took me through the window closed
Well,
win- closed
did
window.
they when they froze you, like how did they freeze you? Did you just couldn't like you knew? Was it more like a telepathic feeling where like you were like, oh no, they did this to me, or was it like you just couldn't move?
It was just instantaneous. I just
Okay.
instantaneously froze. There was no movement on their part. I didn't get anything telepathically. I should say I was terrified. I mean, completely terrified, right? So they proceeded after that, immediately after, to take me through my closed bedroom window. We went out. We were headed through the backyard, and I blacked out at that point, either out of sheer terror or potentially they put me out.
So you were completely frozen, moving. They moved you, no will whatsoever.
I was completely frozen in the same pose that entire time. From the
Did it
time they froze
feel
me.
hot, cold? Did you feel anything whatsoever?
No, there was no feeling at all associated with it, other than
Was there any noise? Was it completely quiet or?
complete silence. I didn't hear anything. To be honest, it was a level of fear to which I imagine even if there were sound or
Yeah,
there were temperature variations, I might not notice.
right.
Might not have noticed, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was the first time. Um, Second time was
So they hold on. So they took
yeah.
you.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So no. So they
No,
took
no, please,
you. They
please.
took you, and then you blacked out. So you don't remember being inside the craft or anything. You just remember going
Yep.
in and then waking up. So you woke up at some point. I'm assuming.
I did not wake up that time. No, I did not. Um, as an aside to that, though, I did visit a regressive hypnotherapist about 10 years ago. Um, at that point I was kind of deep into research, and I had read that regressive hypnotherapy often you can reveal some of those details
Right.
that you can't remember.
You ever try
So I
like
went to one.
EMDR therapy?
I never have myself. No, I studied it back when I was in university, of course,
Yeah,
training
rapid,
for
rapid
therapy.
eye.
Yeah,
It's supposed
yeah,
to
that's
bring
interesting
out
stuff.
repressed memories from traumatic experiences. It'd be super interesting if you went under it and see what happened.
Definitely, definitely. Next time I'm back in the States, I would like to try that. In fact,
So then,
counseling and stuff like that isn't popular here. Yeah, go ahead.
the second time, was
Mhm.
it? So walk us through like basically the second time. What happened with you?
Okay. The second time, the second time, I don't remember being taken. Second time, I woke up on the ship. Um,
A ship.
but well, what I assumed to be a ship, I should take that back. We could have been anywhere, but intuitively I felt we were on a ship. Um, and when you say you woke up and you think you're on a UFO, I think the natural reaction for a lot of people is to be like, how do you know you were on a UFO and you weren't dreaming, right? But it, I think in an event which is so, I don't want to say traumatic, but so memorable like that, you're awake. If
I
there's
was
an
about to
earthquake,
say. I was about
yeah,
to say the same thing. I don't have any issues or problems believing that somebody who wakes up on a foreign spacecraft
yeah.
would grasp the fact that they woke up or on any type of foreign vessel would I think it would be very reasonable to think, oh yeah, any more than you would kind of even if you woke up on an airplane. Anybody who's
Yeah.
been in an airplane would know, yeah, okay, I know I'm not on Earth. I know where I am. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that if I woke up in space on a spaceship after being knocked out and put on a Elon Musk's rocket and woke up in the International Space Station, it wouldn't take me long to grasp where I was.
No,
Now,
it
would I
wouldn't.
believe it? Probably not. It would probably take longer for my mind
Remember,
to come to grips with where I was and for my subconscious to really understand where I was.
do you remember any like details about inside the ship? Was it metal? Did you hear anything? Was there any sound whatsoever? Was it silent? Um,
Yeah. So I don't remember any sound in this event.
Mm.
I do remember details about the inside. So I was reclined. I could not see what I was on, but I assumed it was a table of some sort. I was reclined, not fully lying down. Um, my shoulders and head were a bit up. There was a diffuse white light throughout this entire area or room or whatever it was we were in without any discernible source, which is a very odd thing to see because I have no frame of reference for that. You're in an what seems to be an enclosed space. You see the light sources. This
It's true.
diffused white light was just everywhere, coming out of nothing, right? To the right of me was a gray alien. And this one, now even though I'm reclining, I can tell he's taller. His torso is longer. He's a bit thinner than the guys I had seen before.
They're like discernible muscular features.
He was actually far too thin to really have any musculature that I could notice.
So this is something very interesting I'd like to interject here that a lot of people don't I don't think people I think people take for granted about the
Yeah.
human species
Yeah.
and about Earth is that um for instance, if so our gravity is not really doesn't seem that heavy, but our gravity like we're our bones are strong, you know?
Mhm.
So I consider like when you a lot of these aliens and these species, they're small, they're slight,
Mhm.
they come from planets that don't have the same gravity as us.
Mhm.
I think that there's a really good reason why they restrain us. I think it's more like if we were to like I'm sure their composition's probably not the same as ours either.
Mhm.
I think that we're a lot denser than these things, and I think that our planet, like our gravity's a lot heavier, which would make us a little bit more sturdier than them. Plus, all the
Mhm.
stuff on our planet,
Yeah.
like everything can kill you.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to think that um maybe we're less evolved than we think we are based on what else is in the world or
Absolutely.
in the universe.
Imagine if your entire existence was on that ship. Now,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
let's imagine, for instance, like they've been doing this for so long, they've evolved on the ships, even, right? Or maybe they were created somehow to be on these ships. They, like you said, they don't need strong bones. They don't need to worry about falling down. They don't need to run away from predators. The kind of evolutionary advantages we've developed.
Yeah.
It would make sense to minimize all that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
When you
Makes
So
sense too
this,
for the telepathic
uh
stuff. Like,
you were on the
yeah,
ship,
yeah.
clothed on the ship.
Um, I I couldn't feel my body. I couldn't feel
mm,
my body. Yeah, I was awake. Um, much like the first time, there was that telepathic feeling that the gray was surprised. This gray I could tell was masculine. Um, and telepathically he communicated. Now I should let me say something about telepathic communication. Um, the telepathic communication they use is not a language. You don't hear words in your head. They communicate via ideas.
that makes perfect sense to me because they wouldn't have like that's the only way they would be able to do it because like the words we think in
Mhm.
even though we think in like we think in words like when you have your inner monologue like a lot like you can transfer that to somebody but you could
Yeah,
transfer ideas and feelings, which really makes so much more sense than the traditional nonsense you hear or you see in the movies where they
yeah,
talk in your head. That wouldn't make
yeah,
sense. It's not what
yeah,
they could do, really. But like
no,
I could understand the concept of transferring ideas. You know, it's kind of
yeah,
like how we communicate with animals. We don't talk even though we're saying words, what we're really
yeah,
conveying to them, like with certain words, which I don't want to say because my animal's by me. You know, we're conveying ideas to them.
yeah. I mean, how much deeper is like some like the uncommunicated feeling of love when you look in the eyes of like your partner, right? How much
Yeah,
deeper is that than something you could possibly say,
exactly.
right? The language as we know it is a relatively crude way to communicate, but it's the only way we can.
Hmm.
So, he communicates something to me, something to the effect of, or just like, or maybe this is his inner thought monologue rather than communication. You're not supposed to be awake. And in his hand, he's got this long, about 12 inches long, very thin, thinner than a pencil, silver rod, I guess you would say. Um, I don't see anything on the tip of the rod. It just appears to the entire thing appears to be just silver. It looks metallic. I have no idea what it's made out. And he tells me he communicates. He said that he's going to put this in my ear. He says it won't hurt. He puts this rod into my ear, and it looks to me now I can't move. I'm frozen. It doesn't hurt. He's right. I can't feel a thing. It looks to me like he puts the rod all the way into my ear, which shouldn't be possible. My head isn't 12 inches deep.
Hmm.
It looks to me like he puts that thing all the way into my ear. Um, and then there was a communication, something to the effect of, "Okay, you're going back out. You won't remember this," and I was out. So I wake up the next morning. Um, much like the first time that it happened to me. Um, when I woke up, both of these times, that I had like that adrenaline dump feeling where your body is just completely electrified. You know the feeling. It's like that fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And even after the event's over, you can feel it for hours,
Hmm.
right?
That electric
So,
feeling, yeah.
yeah. So first thing I do is go into the bathroom, pardon me, and I stick my finger in my ear. And I just rub it around in there, just like, like what the hell? Like, I'm not digging in there. I just rub my
Right.
finger in there. And there's a small amount of dried blood. Now, this t- from an anthropomorphic perspective, this does not make sense. If these entities are so advanced that they can put something in your ear like that, why should there be blood? But years later, as I began to research the phenomenon, I found out that it's relatively common. People will get an implant, it'll often be in the ear or the nose, and the next day there'll be a bit of blood or blood on the pillow.
Well, my
I'm sure.
question, my
Yeah.
question, not to well, to interrupt, but not to
No, go
rudely
ahead.
interrupt, but my bigger question when you said that, my bigger question is for these vastly advanced um beings, why are, and this is something that I've heard, before in the past as well, why is it that they're constantly, it's like they're dosing humans and
Mm,
not doing it well enough that they're waking up during these things, and they say, "Oh, you're not going to remember this," and then they do, and people remember these things anyway.
mhm.
That's my bigger question about the competence
Yeah.
of these
Yeah.
beings rather than the probe thing. So the bigger question
Yeah.
is, are they incompetent? Like, are they
Yeah.
actually, like, maybe they're just stuck here and they're dumb and I mean they're smart, but they're not as smart as we think they are,
Yeah.
or they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Th- Things that we think they should be smart enough not to do, that may just be from a human perspective. And then, like you said, also, on the other hand, maybe they want us to remember some of this stuff. And I'll take it a step further. How come we can even see UFOs? UFO sightings, they pop in and out of vision, right? Why do they pop into our vision in the first place? if they have the ability to cloak themselves, why aren't they just cloaked the entire time? To
I
me,
think
it seems like probably the rational thought would be they want us to get a glimpse. But then again, maybe I'm thinking from the human perspective.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would.
uh, have you heard that? I've heard like something recently I was looking into. It's like I don't remember. I don't think I have the right word for it. It's like, but it's like a zoo, like the zoo something theory. Basically, something about that.
Mhm.
Basically, to where like they're almost like zookeepers. They're coming
Mhm.
in doing stuff, and then I'm sure you probably heard kind of zipping away, and that's why it's like
Yeah.
they kind of act like they care, but they kind of don't. Kind
Yeah.
of like when, like, if we were gonna go and like tag an animal, like we'd probably, whatever, you drank it so it doesn't do something crazy to you. And
Yeah.
like, if you combine that theory kind of with the theory of how, like, I was just kind of talking about how everything here can hurt you, and we're in a really
Mhm.
dense, we have a really dense, bone structure, or whatever. Like, if we woke
Mhm.
up on their ship, who knows? Who knows if it's happened? Maybe that's what happened at Roswell. Maybe they messed
Yeah.
up the dose and somebody woke up on their ship and rampaged through it and their glass bones and they destroyed everything and the thing crashed. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
That might make a
Yeah.
great book, but you know what I mean? Like these,
Yeah.
it's this is it's weird to me. The just there's so many consistencies with
Yeah.
what happens to people when they're abducted, and some of the consistencies they would be like, well, if this was like the U.S. Army or something like that, these mistakes would have been wiped out immediately. Like, oh, there's
Yeah.
no more. Make sure you're dosing them correctly so they're not waking up and not.
You're
When they
fired.
do
Right.
wake up, yeah. Then when they do wake up, you're not just looking at them and saying, "Oh shit, you're not supposed to be awake."
They're
That's
not
not
going
a
to
good.
be on
That's not a
abduction
good
duty anymore.
response.
You guys are
Yeah.
not good. You guys are fired from.
From now on, you're on cloak.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's why we see him because then those guys went on cloaking duty, and that's why the cloak doesn't work sometimes.
Right? Maybe they've got a lot of incompetent soldiers in their army for all we know.
Maybe they're just stuck here. They've been trying to get off the planet so long they've forgotten how to do the things. I don't know. Who could even
That's a
know?
re- that's a really good thing to think about. That's a really interesting idea. You're right. Maybe their technology's failing. Right?
Yeah.
Could be.
So
Absolutely.
so you said this has happened about this has happened about 3 times. So wait, you know what?
Yeah.
Let me circle back on the thing here. Have you ever had any type of you done any scans, anything like that to kind of check and see if you had an implant put in your ear or in your brain or anything like that? So I know
No, I
that's a thing
haven't.
that they do, and I know that
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen plenty of. I don't want to say it's true because who could know? But I've seen so many things where there's been implants and they pulled things out, and there's this little these
Yeah.
radio things like
Yeah. The
tags,
the
like
late
like an ear
yeah.
tag.
Yeah, the late Dr. Roger Lear um, pulled a good dozen or so implants out of abductees,
Yeah.
and they didn't know what to make of them. But no, personally, I've never had a scan to check. It's funny you mentioned that. Just earlier this week, a fellow researcher mentioned that to me. Hey, you ever got scanned? No, I haven't. Yeah, so
That
no,
would be
nothing
something
like
I would
that.
be definitely interested in doing if I especially if I
Yeah.
thought somebody was doing this multiple times to me, I'd want to see what they were
Never been concerned to get it checked out, or it's been like, hey, that didn't hurt. I don't really get any feelings from it. Like, let's just. I got live now. It's all good.
I don't know
Yeah,
if I'd want to really.
basically that's it. I'll say this. So yeah, it's happened to me 3 times. And those two instances we just talked about, um, I was scared shitless. Right, I was terrified. When I went back and did the regressive hypnosis for the first one, um, we didn't uncover anything else because I was curled up on the sofa crying like a baby. Right, this is about 10 years ago. I was terrified, but even the day after, I always intuitively felt it was for my own good. I can't pinpoint at all why I feel like that, but I've always felt like it was for my own good.
You think that's
And
do you
Like
think
that.
do you think it was, or do you think that's like an implanted kind of an implanted emotion?
uh, I hope it. I hope it. I hope it's the truth. I'm not in a position to say if it's true or not, but I
Yeah, you
sure
could
hope.
probably go back and forth in your head all day and really rack your brain whether this was a legit thought or not, you know?
I think it's probably safer for my mental health if I
Yeah,
just go with
just
the
call
What's
intuition that.
call
happened?
it call it a W and
Yeah, right.
put it to
Right?
bed.
Sometimes I like
There
to
That's
you
just
so
play
dope
go.
devil's
though.
advocate a little bit.
That
There
was
you
one
go.
of my perspectives too, you know. The initial shock and confusion of seeing a being you don't recognize in some sort of situation that you might deem scary. My gut feeling about all of this is they're just doing their research.
Hmm.
And my hope is they're going to eventually present themselves in a way to take our species to the next level, you know?
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. If the technology we've seen is so advanced, if they wanted to wipe us out, we'd be gone by
Right.
now
They
anyway,
drop some
right?
supersonic thing here and explode our brains from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Off
I'm
of.
sure they could infect us with, alien COVID that would wipe us out in a
Uh,
week.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Freaking, what was it? Terrible, the gas they sprayed in the Battlefield Earth, or what was it? Yeah, Battlefield Earth books.
Like
Um,
sarin gas or something like
yeah,
that.
they could if they wanted to. So you said,
Yeah.
just to get back on where we were going now. So you said this happened to you 3 times.
Yeah.
So the third
Yeah.
time, what happened with you said the third time was a little bit different, it seems like, where you're kind of insinuating that the third time was possibly a little bit different than the first 2 times as far as your
Oh,
feeling
it's a
about it.
hell of a lot. A hell of a lot different. Um, I moved to Japan, and I'll say that back when I lived in the States, I had those two conscious abductions. There were times when I'd wake up with that same fight or flight feeling like something weird happened. Um, I saw a UFO once, had some missing time, but so I suspect there are probably other instances,
Hmm.
but never in Japan. I've never felt that feeling. I've never felt that I've been visited here in Japan. Um, my wife and I had a son 8 years ago, and right before his first birthday, we went back to Washington State to visit my folks. They had since moved to another town. Went back to visit my folks, and in the middle of the night, um, again, this is one where I don't remember being taken. I do remember returning though. Middle of the night, I wake up seated. Very similar situation in terms of lighting, just diffuse white light, no light source. Um, it seems like we're in a room, but I can't necessarily see the walls. Across from me is my infant son.
Oh
He's
no.
eye level, and he's sitting in what I can only describe as like an alien high chair for babies. It's like this molded little chair
What
that
color
puts
was
him
it? Was it like white
just.
shiny, or was it metal?
It was. Oh no, it was like an white off white. Looked like it was made of plastic.
Hmm.
No sharp corners, completely rounded. It looked like it was molded almost for his body. Um, he's sitting across from me with the biggest grin on his face. He's really happy. And he greets me telepathically. So, and now this is another thing that's hard to express in language, but you see a baby and the baby's eyes light up. There's a certain difference from when you see an adult and their eyes light up. There's a certain innocence or infancy to that unspoken communication. Okay? He greets me telepathically, but it's not the greeting of an infant. It's the greeting of an adult, which I which was really shocking. It was a hello type greeting, again, that the idea, no words, but it felt like it was coming from an adult, not a child. Okay? So in between us, is this sphere or globe about the size of a basketball. Inside the sphere, I shouldn't say it's necessarily a sphere. There may have been no encasement. But what I see in this is a swirling gas or liquid, purple in color. It actually looked a lot like if you see those time lapse videos of the sun, how like the gas and the radiation swirls around. Looked a
Hmm.
lot like that, but it was purple. And there's a tall gray to the right of me, left of him, kind of sitting with that purple globe, you know. It's a triangle. We're all around this purple globe. And I come to, and this gray telepathically communicates to me something along the lines of, if you agree to this, you and he will understand each other's souls. That was the gist of it. That was the meaning I took from it, okay? I have no idea what the hell he's talking about, right? What it makes no sense. And to take it back a notch, like I said, the first 2 times I was terrified. This time I wasn't terrified at all. Now I'd been doing research for a long time, okay? And I'd come to grips with the fact that I'd been taken. That may have something to do with it. Maybe I'd read enough.
And this was one of the taller grays or one of the smaller ones?
Taller gray, indistinguishable from the one that put something in my ear. Yeah.
So do you think? Let me ask you a question. The purple thing, right? Like I see it.
Mhm.
I can kind of see. I have an idea what it was in my
Yeah.
mind based on what
Yeah.
you're saying now.
Yeah. It's pretty simple.
Now, do you think it was a computer or what they're using for basically computer, like some sort that was kind of translating the emotions, or do you think this was more something that do you think the purple thing, whatever that you guys were around, had anything to do with the transfer of emotions and ideas telepathically?
My impression was it was a device of some kind. It performed a function. My impression wasn't that it facilitated communication. That's just my impression. That I'm not sure if that was a telepathic impression. When you're up there, you intuit a lot,
Yeah.
right? And so just intuitively, I felt it was it had a function of some sort. Um, but I can't, what it was, I don't know. Apparently, it enabled us to understand each other's
Yeah, that's
souls.
what I was thinking. If that was the thing, maybe there's
Yeah.
some type of mind meld or like a
Yeah, yeah. So
type of
in that
thing.
respect, yeah, in that respect, what I took from it is that was the object that would allow us to I say quote, but it wasn't words, understand each other's souls. So I'm just confused, right? This doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't agree or disagree. I just stare at the guy, right? But apparently that was enough. Apparently that was an agreement. Um, or maybe I did. Maybe underneath what was going through my head, and maybe my quote soul agreed. Who knows? Anyways, I stared at the guy. He took that as a sign of agreement or something. And now he does something to the globe, but he does not move at all. The globe does not change. I cannot tell you how I know he did something to this globe, but he did something to the globe. I understood something happened that he made happen.
Hmm.
Okay? So, instantaneously, my son and I, now I'm awake, I watch this happen.
Hmm.
We shoot down from like low Earth orbit. We shoot down through the atmosphere, through the cloud cover, zipping down. The Earth rapidly approaches. We go through the roof of my parents' house. This all happens in like half a second. But when something like that happens, it happens in slow mo, right? It's one, these crazy events happen. It's like I've heard
Like being
soldiers
on
talk.
a roller coaster, like where it
Yeah,
feels like it
yeah,
takes forever, but it's really 15, whatever, 45 seconds, but it's a
yeah.
lifetime.
It's a lifetime. And we land back down in my parents' house. And my son, oddly, I'm laying down, but my son is sitting on my lap.
Mm.
And he's still got that big shit eating grin.
Where's your
And
wife at this point?
she's next to me in bed.
And she didn't wake up.
No.
So
Um,
spooky.
and so I'm like, okay, fella. And I put my son back to bed. And then I just went back to sleep myself. That was the third um, quote abduction. I kind of don't like the word abduction, but I kind of do because I I didn't agree to be taken or I didn't ask for it. At least I don't remember. Maybe in a past life or something I did. Who knows? But abduction, it has negative connotations. I'd
Right.
like for us to somehow. I wish there was another word for it. But yeah, that was my third one.
I feel like in order for you to have multiple encounters with other beings or even experiences where waking up and you felt like you had some sort of past experience or past interaction with these things,
Mhm.
sounds like you are almost chosen to have these type of experiences, to have the type of life that you also chose, the path that you went down in your personal life and what you choose to do on your free time is really, really interesting as well.
I want to make a
Yeah,
jump here. I think that's really actually. Let's explore that. Go ahead. I would like to respond to that. As a matter of fact.
yeah. W- you know, we know that as an abduction researcher, we know that it follows family lines, right? Like it typically, um, a parent and then one of their children. It'll happen to a parent and then one of their children and then one of their grandchildren and so on. I've grilled my family members about it, and they claim that um, not my grand never happened to any of them, never happened to my grandparents, etc. I find it hard to believe I'm patient zero, like the first one in my family line, but I could be. Um,
Child.
yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you said that because actually, I kind of left with the impression from that third encounter that it was like a passing of the torch, kind of like they're done with me, and maybe now in the future he'll have his own experiences.
No.
He has, yeah. Go ahead.
So just to play devil's advocate to here.
Yeah.
Is this? It seems like they may have taken you, like you said, like the 3 times you remember, but might be like a whole bunch more times. And so now
Oh,
seems like
I'm
they
almost
might.
positive.
So they may have started just kind of taking him, and it seems like you may have just given him permission to do that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, I'm almost positive I was taken from a young age, but
Yeah.
I don't have, I don't have clear memories of being taken, so I'm not gonna go out there and say, "Hey, yo, I was abducted since the age of 5." I had a
Hmm.
bunch of weird stuff happen to me. When I was a kid, my parents would wake up, they found me outside of the house once, but like, who knows? I don't know if I was taken or not, but I think you're right. I think it could be happening a lot more than we think to
I
those
think
that
so
have.
too.
Yeah.
And so and on that, I want to kind of use that as a segue to shift here. I'm on your website here,
Yeah.
peterwhitley.org. And I
Yeah.
want to just, if you don't, if with your permission, I just kind of want to read your story and
Feel
just kind
free.
of ask you a
Please.
question. So, I mean, it says here,
Please do.
having practiced the art of hypnosis for over 20 years, I pinpointed and refined the process to achieve consistent and extraordinary success. Wanting to expand and further explore the field of consciousness, I studied techniques for out of body experiences, combining them with hypnotic induction.
Yes.
2021, I developed the Eisen Astral Project. The Eisen Astral Projection. I'm saying it wrong, but I'm saying it
No, no,
correctly.
you're saying it right.
Yeah,
Eyes and astral.
I developed
Eyes
Eisen
and
Astral
projection.
Projection. Yes.
Yeah.
With the intention of traveling to UFOs and communicating with their occupants. It was
Mhm.
and is a success. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
let's talk about how you segued or like how you transitioned from how you kind of took the power, I would say,
Yeah,
of your visits. Let's not call them abductions, as you said. Let's call them visits
yeah,
from now.
yeah,
Meetings.
yeah,
We'll call them meetings.
yeah. It sounds good to
Um,
me. I'll go with that.
yeah. So you've taken the power of your meetings and kind of translated that into an expansion of your mind.
Yeah.
Um, and it seems like possibly you say you've communicated with some occupants of some vehicles, some UFOs, so
Mhm.
you're possibly in communication with beings now.
I
I've
believe
got a
it.
million questions about that. A couple
Yeah,
things I want to
sure,
couple things I want to just prime you with, I guess, are number one,
sure.
of course, like it's not like how did you get into that? We can see how you got into that through the
Yeah,
hypnosis, and you kind of touched on that.
yeah.
But I guess a good primer here would be, um, do you feel like, and and if so, how has
Mhm.
the abduction experiences opened your mind to being more receptive to the OBEs? Let's start
Mhm.
there, and then let's get into OBEs a little bit. And let's get into your experiences with the beings. But
Yeah,
I want to start just on the edge of this, kind of dip our
yeah.
toes into this one because OBEs and astral projection are I know Brian is very interested in those. We've done a show or a couple parts of shows on them, and
Mhm.
it's something that's very interesting to me too. I'd like to get into.
Mhm.
So take
Yeah,
us through, like, I guess this progression now,
yeah.
into this.
Honestly, even though even though I'd had these experiences happen to me, um, I was a UFO investigator at that point. All of this stuff. Honestly, I didn't believe in astral projection until about 2 years ago. I didn't believe in chakras. I thought all that stuff was hogwash. I was. It's this sounds crazy. This sounds crazy, but I was still a nuts and bolts guy. Even though there was no nuts and bolts to me getting abducted, I still felt like this is a fully physical phenomenon, um, and like that. I didn't believe in that stuff. I got bored with hypnosis, and then I came across out of body stuff, and I tried it, like you talked about, and I realized it worked. Okay, now when I realized it worked, the first thing I thought was, I'm using this to go up there and visit these guys. If I can do this, why can't I go up there and visit? So that's what opened me up to it. Even though I was completely dove all the way into the field of ufology, I didn't believe in that stuff at all until I just happened to dip my toes in it and realize it was real. Now that I know it's real, I'm much more acceptive of some of these other things that people talk about, like even channeling, remote viewing, etc., etc. Now, now I'm accepting of that stuff.
So
But
take us
it
through
was just by
that.
chance.
Take us through, like, how you're delving into this progress into real OBEs.
The process?
Yeah, because I mean, like, so, not I mean, not necessarily the process, but so I would say just walk us through, like, for instance, so when you started to realize that you were able to astral project, what
Yeah.
what was that like? How did it feel? And then how did that progress into because I don't I am sure that, like, it took practice and time to get from initially astral projecting to visiting, other realms or wherever these beings actually exist. I have a sneaking
Yeah.
suspicion that they don't exist in our dimensions, that this is this in
Yeah.
dimensions outside of ours, and that's how they're able to transport us and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It took a lot of time. In fact, it took way too much time. Um, I, t- I, t- I'll go ahead and name what I took. I did the Gateway Experience, which is a program put out by the Monroe Institute. The late Dr. Monroe was kind of a pioneer in the out of body experience, and he developed a course basically teaching people how to do it. It's a rather long course. Um,
There are
it's
audio
over.
tapes of it.
I believe a
Yeah, yeah.
previous guest mentioned that, didn't he, Brian? The guy who had the OBE with the thing that would let, because he had an OBE where he was in, like, literally in a dimension that was like like a dimension that was like adjacent to ours, and he accidentally ended up where he wasn't supposed to be and somehow got back. And I remember,
Wow.
I really feel like I remember him telling us about mentioning the name, the Monroe guy.
Yeah, I think we talked about.
Or it might have been with the girl. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, it's the gold standard for OBEs. I think
Okay.
anyone involved with OBE knows about it.
Right.
But yeah, it's 7 CDs long, and it's the kind of thing where you need to practice multiple times. Each CD
Hmm.
will have 6 or 7 modules you go through,
So
and
you know what's interesting? You say
yeah,
your name is Peter Whitley. I'll tell you something crazy.
yeah,
My first experience with like astral projection and kind of OBEs and lucid dreaming, I should say, which is kind of was my
yeah,
kind of gateway to that, was with
yeah.
a l- a woman who does um sleep hypnosis for easy lucid dreaming on YouTube called Jody Whitley. So that's kind of funny.
No kidding,
Yeah.
cool,
Anyways.
interesting.
So what I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of talk about though was like you're not necessarily like how you I didn't want to talk about like your necessarily the process in the steps that you took. I wanted to talk about
Mhm.
the experiences that you had and how they developed. You know, as far as
Like
like
once
so
I got up there.
yeah, so like how did like because I know initially because
Hmm.
my I've had a couple initial experiences and I mean they're not super special. They're more lucid dreams and stuff where I can kind of move
Hmm.
around. I know that's kind of the first step. But I
Yeah,
mean, to actually have the OBEs, I know a lot of
yeah.
times there's people talk about there's a like a maybe a cord, like a almost like a cord that connects your body,
Mhm,
like a tether type of thing,
mhm,
and you kind of have to
mhm.
move your body in ways that you wouldn't normally move, which is my kind of call to the whole
Y yeah,
dimensional thing.
yeah, the
Tell us about that
vibrational
though.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, I found out I could do it, right, through the
Mm-hmm.
gateway process. I knew there was a quicker way, and I detail it on my website, right? So I found
Interesting.
a way that's a lot quicker. Um, and as soon as I figured out I could do it, I popped out of my body once, I saw the room, came back in, looked at the room and saw that, oh yeah, the things I thought that were different were actually different. This is real. This works.
Mm.
My thought, like I said, boom, I want to do this to visit ETs. I knew it took too long. I developed a different way to do it, but using the methods on the backs of others. So
Oh.
the first time I went under, and I say go under because I use a hypnotic induction. The first time I went under and did it. Now, my intent was 100% to visit a UFO, right? I think
Right.
this is key. Like, I wasn't going under, like, hey, let's see what happens. Maybe I can visit a UFO. No, like, I laid down on that sofa and I put my audio into my ears and I said to myself, I'm going under. When I get out of body, I'm visiting a UFO. That first time I popped out, looked around, saw that I was out of body, and without any more effort on my own, I appeared inside a UFO. I did not fly in the sky and find a UFO. I popped out of my body. I saw I was out. Still in my mind, the only thing I'm thinking is I'm visiting a UFO. Boom, and I'm there. And there's someone there to greet me. Something there to greet me. A gray. A gray.
So you
Yeah.
did this basically by will. This was more of a will thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a I can't do it just laying down with nothing. I need to use a hypnotic. Personally, I use a hypnotic audio induction. You were talking about the cord.
Mhm.
That's one method. I use the vibrational process, which is where after I go under hypnosis, I vibrate my chakras. And with each chakra I vibrate, I pull that part of the body out, my astral body out. The last chakra I pull out is the crown chakra. By the time I get there, the rest of my body is out and I'm detached by the head. There's sort of a pop, and then I'm out. Yeah,
Huh.
that's how I do it. Yeah. So I can't just do it at will. I can't just go in the closet and close my eyes and do it. I need to undergo a process. It's got to be quiet. If you came in the room while I was doing it, it'd snap me out of it.
Oh no, is this and so this is a process that you detail? I'm assuming on your website, and that other people could
Yeah.
actually go to and
Yeah.
learn how to. And that's the
Yeah.
peterwhitley.org, correct?
PeteWhittley.org.
Pete Whitley.
Pete,
So it's
yeah, Pete Whitley.
PeteWhitley.org for
That's
anybody
correct.
who's interested who wants to
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of delve into that. So
Yeah.
tell us about a
Yeah.
couple things I want to get into there, especially because based
Yeah.
on just what you just said. So the process when you're pulling yourself out of there,
Yeah.
um, is it something you can kind of feel when you pop, or is it more like you're not necessarily a tactile feeling, but maybe like a spiritual feeling, or
It's both. It's both.
uh,
When the vibrational process of vibrating the chakras, I feel a physical vibration at each chakra as I pull out. There is a definitive physical vibration. Yeah.
hmm,
Um, and then when I say pop, I guess I don't mean like there's an audible pop, but there's a feeling of that's kind of like that to me
like a
for me.
releasing feeling almost.
Yeah, for me, the crown chakra pulling out of the top of my head, that's the hardest part. That's kind of the effort I really have to give that an effort. I really have to, with the rest of my astral body, I have to stretch a bit, and that's what I refer to as the pop when I
So,
come out.
so when you appeared in this vehicle or in this craft, as you may, or maybe even this space, whatever it is, um, were there beings there? Were they surprised to see you, or was it more like it was just was it an empty space, occupied space? Tell us about this.
Sure, yeah. The first time I did it, when I got there, I recognized it was a UFO, having been in having been in them a couple of times, few
Hmm.
times. Um, and when I got there, I was looking at that first time. I was looking at again just this weird white thing. I thought it might be a control panel, but I had no idea what it was. I couldn't understand it. It was just like a white box. And from behind me, I get a telepathic communication. Would you like to look around? And so I replied, yeah, I would. So, um, this is a small gray. Okay. Um, we left that room. It wasn't a process of physically moving. It was kind of like a shift, if you will. Like our positions just shifted. We were in a different room. And that first day, the first thing they showed me, they didn't ask me what I wanted to see. The first thing this gray showed me was what looked like a nursery. Okay? And there was a what looked like a human baby. It looked a lot like what my son looked like as a baby, to tell you the truth.
Like
And
a
the baby,
newborn, like a very small, or like how old? How like what
oh,
would you?
maybe 1 year old roughly.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and the baby was floating. Um,
Oh my
so and
goodness.
when I say it was a nursery, the reason I say it was a nursery is because it looked like it had wallpaper and
Mm.
baby toys and stuff. Okay, it looked like a human nursery. Okay, and which is very different from what I had seen before. So there's three attendants there with this baby, and the gray was my guide, if you will.
The
Three
small gray
attendants.
now, right? Not the big,
Yeah,
not a big one.
yeah. This is small gray. Uh these attendants kind of looked like nurses to me, or maybe or just maybe the ladies that work at nurseries or people that work at
Were
nurseries,
they
right?
people or were they grays or what were they?
Well,
Or
they looked they
androids?
looked they looked human, okay?
Mm.
But the gray asked me, the gray asked me, would you like to hold the baby? And my immediate thought is, how can I hold the baby? I'm astrally
Yeah.
projecting here. Um, but apparently that wasn't a problem. So the the baby comes closer to me, and as
Just
as
floats
I
closer
start
to
to
you.
yeah, as I start to fixate on what I'm looking at,
Mm-hmm.
I realize these three nurses aren't nurses at all. They're small grays with
Hmm.
some sort of like I don't know, like a hologram on them. You can kind of see through it a little bit. They were disguised to be human nurses, but you can see through it as you like look at it closely,
I'm sure
right?
a baby probably wouldn't pick up on it as much though, huh?
Probably not. Yeah. Um and so the baby comes close. Um and then a young man comes up. Human looking man. A young man comes up. He looks to be, I don't know, about 30. Um, he looks a bit like a Ken doll. In that
What
that uncanny valley kind of way. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like possibly maybe like a clone or like an android or once again maybe just an even better disguise.
Yeah. So he came close and I didn't notice any disguise. So I took this guy to be like this was his actual form. You could when close up you could see these nurses weren't nurses.
Right.
It's hard to explain, but there's some sort of weird hologram. So
So
this young
what
guy,
exactly? Sorry, I kind of
yeah,
wanna dig this one a little bit because this is
yeah,
interesting to me
please,
too. What
please.
was it that gave? Can you think of anything distinctive that gave you
Mhm.
the uncanny valley idea from the guy? Was it his
Yeah.
expression, the way his eyes looked,
Mm-hmm.
his hair texture? Like, was
Yeah,
it too shiny? Like, what was it? That's
yeah,
what
it
I'm
was a lot.
interested in.
It was a lot of those things. His hair looked like it was just shellacked on. His skin texture was just flawless. I mean, like he didn't have pores in his skin, right? He
Hmm.
looked it like he. I'm not gonna say he looked like a perfect human because there's no such thing, and you run into a lot of problems when you start to think, what is a perfect? What do you mean a perfect human?
I
A
know,
perfect
no,
human?
I know what you're saying though. Like
Yeah,
the not a perfect human, but the ideal in our heads. We have like
yeah,
people. Like, if you want to get away from the oh my
yeah,
gosh, don't cancel us. There is,
yep,
like you said, there's in our minds that typical Archie Bunker. You know,
yeah,
19, just the guy who I know what you're talking about. So I'm
yeah,
thinking, so the
yeah,
guy, so this person looked almost manufactured.
yeah. He just looked too good to be true. Every
Mm,
bit of him, right? Every bit of him looked too good to be true. But I could definitely, it definitely didn't seem like a disguise. There was a clear distinction between whatever those nurses were doing,
okay.
the Grays were doing, and this guy.
And so tell
And
us more about your interaction with him.
so he holds the baby, right? I don't hold the baby. He actually holds the baby, holds him up to me,
Hmm.
and communicates that the baby's my baby. Okay, and as if that wasn't enough, he says that he's also my son. And as if that wasn't enough, one of those nurses chimes in telepathically and says I have three sons on that ship, or whatever this is, apparently. That's a lot to take in your first time doing this astral projection, going to a UFO. Um,
And what did
and
you, let me ask you, what did your,
yeah,
was your initial thought to that? Was your initial thought that they um extracted DNA and cloned you and made babies or what was your initial thought to that? So you
my
have all these
initial
kids on this ship.
my initial thought was, you mean to tell me the hybridization program is real? Because
That's what
I
I
didn't
was,
necessarily believe in it. Right? Like it's a huge thing. People talk about it all the time when we're talking about abductions,
yeah.
contactees. It's a huge issue,
Hmm.
and I never fully bought it. to be honest with you. I'm not going to say I discounted people that said it happened to them, but it was so unlike other cases. I don't know. I didn't buy it. So my first thought was just literally like, holy shit, this is that it's real. You really do this? That was my first
Were
thought.
you
My
able to
That's actually
God.
all I
communicate? Were you able to communicate any sort of questions or why this was happening?
thought.
How this was happening?
No, there was actually there was immediately after that communication happened. Um, that that gray, the quote nurse, the gray that told me I have three sons. She also told me time was running out, and I started to slip away. I could feel my astral body kind of slipping away
Hmm.
from the ship. And what I do is, like I said, I use audio. I time it. At the end, I have like a 30-minute version. I have like an up to an hour. I
Hmm.
time it to make sure I come back because what I found is that time flows differently up there. You
Hmm.
could think you're up there for 4 hours and it's 15 minutes. You could think you're up there for 15 minutes and it's 4 hours. Um, and so she said time was running out, and then I heard the command I have on the audio is return to your body. Return to your body now. I heard the command, and boom, I was back in my body. But to elaborate on the point about if anyone told me how they do it, um, in the 40 sessions I conducted last year doing this, I never found out anything more about the hybridization program, how they do it. I found out a bit more about that older young man, but I didn't find anything about how they do it. If they extract DNA, if they're clones, I have no idea.
So, what did you find out about the young man then?
So I met him once more,
In your astral?
one other occasion, and I asked him. I asked him if I could see the other son I apparently have up there. I mean, even the I s- I don't want to believe in the hybridization program to tell you the truth. Yeah, it kind of creeps me out.
I'll be
So
honest. I mean, it makes sense, like in line with an advanced race doing experiments on humans. I mean, it's in
yeah,
line with that. I mean, as distressing as it seems.
yeah,
I mean, to be honest, it seems distressing
yeah.
only from an ego perspective of humans that they're, you know. I
You're
hate to
that you're
say it
yeah.
like that, but
Yeah, no, man, you're so right. That's exactly it. Like, it's just distressing from like, yeah, from just our perspective, but it makes complete sense that they would do something like that. So I asked him when I met him the second time. I asked him if I could see this other son of mine, and he said he communicated that I couldn't see that son because he was in recovery. Now, so that was the communication, but it's telepathic, right? And there's something he's not communicating, but I can still intuit because this is an open telepathic line that we have. So I can tell what he's not telling me is that this other son is badly burned. And I can see a vision of this, this some, and another maybe 30-year-old looking individual, and their face was just all charred up. But the odd thing was, he wasn't communicating that to me. I could just intuit it because we have this open telepathic communication,
that's the thing I
right?
wonder too, is that if that's one of the main reasons why, that's one of the reasons why they try to, make sure we're anesthetized or put to sleep when they're doing stuff is because maybe
Yeah.
the telepathic communication is probably maybe it's not something that maybe because we have a different psychology or physiology to our brains or whatever it is or
Mm.
however we use our minds, maybe that's why they do that because they can't control what we pick up, or maybe who knows, maybe if it's vice versa, or maybe that's
Precisely. I think I have that line of thinking as well. It's hard to keep secrets,
As
right?
good as, yeah, because as utilitarian and useful as that type of communication could be,
Mm-hmm.
like without really, really, really probably there's like in a society like that, I could imagine that there's people that their job and that they're trained to really guard their minds. But if you're
Yeah,
just
yeah,
if you're an experiment or a this or that, I
yeah,
hate to say it like that. If you're an experiment, or maybe if you're just a low level grunt or just a scientist working in the lab on these
yeah,
experiments, you wouldn't necessarily have that type of formal training to
yeah.
to to ha- to be to shield your mind. So they
Yeah,
would be
a
like, hey man,
lion
make sure
tamer
you
doesn't. Yeah, a
go ahead.
lion
Yeah,
tamer doesn't go in the cage and show that he's scared, right? You don't want
yeah.
to communicate these things to
Hmm.
yeah people you're dealing with or animals or whatever you're yeah
So that's
observing.
very, that's absolutely, yeah, it's not even that, but just that's even just the information of knowing that type of communication as a human, like if you knew that, like you could, I don't want to say
Yeah,
like we're super smart and we could use that to our advantage and outthink these guys, but I mean, I'm gonna be
yeah,
honest, like based on
yeah,
what we know about these civilizations or
yeah,
whatever they are, like you said, some of the things they do, a lot of the things they do, they don't seem they seem counterintuitive to like from a
mm-hmm,
security perspective.
mm-hmm,
Doesn't seem
mm-hmm,
like they have experience. So here's a good thing to
mm,
from my perspective. If you think about it, like humans have been at war
yeah,
forever. Like
yeah,
that's it's just
yep.
what we do.
It's our
So
nature.
it's our nature. So if you look at a species like that, and these species don't necessarily, it doesn't seem like that's their thing. Seems like research, and they've gone beyond those things.
Yeah,
But from a perspective of humans, like if you have a species that's so advanced that they don't even do war anymore, right?
yeah,
If you're thinking, think if that's been phased out for thousands of years,
yeah,
there's going to be a lot of things from a perspective that you're not going to be they're not those beings wouldn't be prepared for from humans, because like from a
yeah,
warring species there's going to be like there's going to be deception,
yeah,
like I said, like you said, picking up on the things that are they're thinking about. Maybe they don't even think about the fact that someone could pick up on those thoughts and use them to their advantage because they don't think like that
mm-hmm,
anymore. So I mean,
mm-hmm,
that's another reason why they might be guarding their brains, or maybe they're not even thinking about guarding their minds. Who
mm-hmm,
even knows? Like, there's so many
yeah,
possibilities here when you think about it. When you think about an
yeah,
advanced race, especially
yeah,
because an advanced race with advanced technology, when you think about that versus ours, there's going to be, of course, there's going to be millions of advantages, but there's also going to
mm-hmm,
be disadvantages from things that they don't have to think about anymore, like you talked about. You don't have to think about
mm-hmm.
being hunted or anything. So it's going to make their minds not work the same way ours do. Just for perspective. I mean, we're
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. Like, just because they may be a million years more advanced than us doesn't mean they might not have some quote weaknesses that we could potentially take advantage of, right? Because
even
they're by nature an alien race, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
that like 200 years ago in the American wilderness, like a man would lose a fight to a bear because all
Yeah.
he had was a musket. So
Yep.
it's like, and so we were still not the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Less than there's countries in the world where we're still not top of the food chain.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And to think about how we would act after 2,000 years of not being hunted and not having to worry about disease is that would make a huge difference. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. All of those senses would be dulled at that point, right? You wouldn't be prepared for an aggressive species.
you wouldn't, and I think that's another reason why. I mean, maybe they're watching us and seeing how we evolve, because if we get to the point where we're all able to kind of just pop in and pop out and astral project, I mean, it could be a
Mhm.
nightmare. It could be a nightmare for the universe.
Yeah, it definitely could. It
You
definitely
know.
could. Yeah, for sure.
So
Um,
tell us more
yeah,
about, like, so let's not to get too sidetracked, but I mean,
yeah,
so what other things have you learned, like from your travels, I guess I would say would be a good way to say. Anything very interesting you want to kind of go over with
sure.
us, or
Sure. I guess, I mean, probably the, m- I guess maybe the most interesting thing or the question most people would ask would be like, why are they here? What the hell are they doing? Right?
I don't
And
like to ask that question because, like, I don't know if there's a really good answer, but I'd love to hear your take on this.
I think that is a fantastic approach and philosophy to this. Absolutely, 100%. Whitley Strieber has a quote in a recent documentary where he says, "We need to hold on to the question." And the
Mm,
implication is once we start to think we know the answer, we're on the wrong track
mm-hmm.
because we probably don't know, and there's probably some sort of biological limitations um, with our physical selves that are going to keep us from ever knowing, right? But
Very possible.
I can tell you what they told me. Um, soon after, I guess it was the second session I had. I met a small female gray. The gray the first day was male. The next one was feminine. I shouldn't say female. Feminine. There's nothing to indicate that. They were identical. Occasionally they would wear some sort of like that hologram, like occasionally they'd wear like something that looks like a shirt for some reason or even eyeglasses.
I've heard they
But
don't wear a lot of clothes.
yeah, for the most part they were always just in their gray form. A few
Mm.
times they were wearing some sort of weird hologram thing, and I told them to take it off because it's
That's why I wonder if
distracting.
that's. That's why I wonder if that's like it's like a construct. You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
even real.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah, I'll get back to the bigger picture in a second. But since we're talking about this, um, I during these sessions I would get really annoyed with these holograms, right? Because they take me to a room and it looks like something that we have on Earth, and I'd say, can you take the hologram off? I want to see what it really looks like.
Right.
And inevitably, it always just looks like a plain white room with maybe a couple of white plastic things, right? And one time, one of the grays, the gray that I asked to take it off, he said, "Doesn't it make a lot more sense to you when we keep the hologram on?" And I had to agree it does, at least at first. So, anyways, back to what they told me. The big picture was, second time I went up there, this female gray showed me these tubes. They had a bunch of tubes in the floor. I asked her what was in them. She said the communication was like you are, but it wasn't like me, Peter Whitley.
Yeah.
The implication was us, humanity. The third time I went up, the masculine gray, I believe it was the masculine. I journaled it all, but anyway, one of the smaller grays took me to what looked to be a laboratory. There was a tall gray in there at like it looked like he was standing something that kind of looked like a desk. There was no disguise on it. It was just a big white thing, and it had like a big tube going up to the ceiling, and through that tube, um, a capsule would come down the tube and land in front of him in an indentation. And inside that capsule would be what looked to be like strings of energy, I guess you could say, of different colors,
Mm-hmm.
kind of moving around like, I don't know, lightning or something. And this tall gray had a device, and it looked just like the device I saw when I was 18. It was just a metal rod. He had a device, and he did something to it. This time I saw his hands physically moved, right? I could see
Mm-hmm.
him do something to it. And then the capsule shot out and another capsule came in. And so what I was told is that they are working on human souls to help human souls evolve. When the my understanding that this was not communicated, but just intuitively I felt like these were dead people, souls of people who died. And when they shot out of that tube after he was done with them,
Mm-hmm.
I also understood they were leaving the ship and going somewhere. And I asked them, where are you sending these things? And they said, it doesn't matter where, it matters why was the communication. I didn't really understand that, but I mean, I guess you can kind of think about it and kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
So I'm up there. They're throwing this all down on me. This is like the third session, and it's blowing my mind. And I'm in awe. I think these guys are gods, right? You know, basically, they might as well be. And so I asked the small gray next to me. I said, "Wow, well, if you're doing this to souls, do we ever get to come back as grays? Like, like, can we come back like you? Do we ever get to come back like you?"
Hmm.
And a thing I think people don't realize about um, extra grays. I'm not. I hate to even use the word extraterrestrials. Like you, I think there's a dimensionality component to it.
Mm-hmm.
They exhibit some personalities, muted compared to humans, but they do exhibit some personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I said, "Do we ever get to come back as you?" the gray was amused. I could tell he was amused.
Hmm.
And he communicated to me, "No, you don't come back as us. We don't have souls." He said we were created, or he communicated. He didn't say, but he communicated we were created to do this work.
Like angels.
Um. Well, and so I asked him. I was like, I didn't ask him. In my mind, yeah, telepathically, you can be thinking something, and
Mm-hmm.
before you have a chance to ask the question,
You've
they
already
know what
asked it because you know what you're
you've
asking.
already
Yeah.
asked it, right?
So
You've
fucking
asked it
dangerous.
to think it, right? So yeah.
That's so scary and dangerous when you think about it, man. Like there's you can't tell me that there has to be like some sect of their species that has trained to make sure that they just don't do that.
Oh yeah. They must have a. You'd
Actually,
think they would have a guard
Or
against it
maybe they
because
don't. Maybe
it
they don't because
maybe
they're
actually
they
so
don't
like
need
advanced they
one.
don't need one.
it would be one of the purest forms of communication. Could having a thought pop in
Yeah.
your head, everybody knows your thoughts, so it's all out there for everybody to hear
Yeah.
and listen to. To know that that is going to happen would be amazing.
Yeah.
It's actually
That
true though, and like I
that's
don't think humans are pure enough to be able to do that without. I mean, maybe I get to the point where we can be pure enough. Maybe that's the evolution we need.
that is such a great point, because
It's
actually what we're
huge, Brian.
talking about is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about something so beautiful that you can just you're almost at one with each other. But for us, it's terrifying
Yeah,
because
because
we're
we're
humans.
inherently evil,
Yeah,
dude. We're inherently
right? Like,
deceptive and selfish. That's why.
yeah, we're selfish. We have secrets. There's stuff we do that we're ashamed of.
Yep.
For us, it's terrifying. But like you said, like, I mean, it's angelic. This is a beautiful thing. But yeah, for us, it's terrifying. It's absolutely
Here's a
terrifying.
question
Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask you for a minute too. This is just kind of an
Sure.
aside, but it's important to me. It's wondering. So, like you say when you're projecting, you
Yeah.
use the you're using a term up and or out there and it's things like this to up.
Hmm.
You're almost implying
Hmm.
a lot that you're
Yeah.
up in a ship, and saying
Hmm.
them and without saying it, and I'm almost kind of even assuming, but it's almost there that the ship is
Hmm.
in space. So my
Hmm.
question is, um, am I correct in assuming that you're kind of assuming that or believing that? And if I am,
Hmm.
um, what are your indicators of that?
Hmm.
Have you seen out windows there, or is it more of just like an implied feeling or something that you're receiving telepathically from these beings when you're at? Can you even ask, like, are we in space? Are
Hmm.
we in another
Hmm.
dimension?
Hmm.
That's something I would definitely have asked. I'm
Yeah.
wondering about this.
That
You definitely.
that's a great observation and question. And actually, I left this part out of just because it wasn't necessarily relevant. But starting with the second encounter,
Hmm.
um, from the second through maybe the fifth or sixth, I'd have to check my notes, my journal. But um, for the next several encounters, when I arrived there, I would be looking at a window,
Hmm.
or I'd be in front of a window. Um, and since I knew that I could already go in, like I'd gone in the first day, I'd just shown up there, right? But I
Hmm.
would appear in front of this window, and I could see the Earth below us, and it
I
looked like we
see.
were in relatively low Earth orbit. And so the second day when that happened, as soon as I got up there and I'm in front of the window, I was like, "Can I, I want to leave. Can I come in?" And I was told I had to wait. I don't know why, but that happened, 4 times maybe. Sessions 2 through 5, roughly something like that. The funny thing is, like, I could tell I was looking at Earth, but it wasn't until maybe the last time they had me in front of that window where, like, the clouds parted in just the right way where I could tell I was above Japan.
Uh,
Like,
so
I
when you
didn't,
say you were, no, when you say when you started when you got there, like the 2 through 5 or what you just mentioned. Now, are
Mhm.
you saying were you outside waiting to come in, or were you inside in like one of the nondescript rooms waiting to kind of
Yeah,
be able to go
yeah,
into the rest of the area?
yeah, inside. I was not outside of a ship or anything like that.
So
I
I'm
was
You
wondering
like
if they.
look around, like felt like a, but it was weren't allowed to look.
Yeah, I don't know if it was I wasn't allowed to look around, or if the window was so big I couldn't look around, or if I didn't think to look around. I did not look around. I know that much.
No,
I
could
just stared out this window.
So cool.
there be any possibility you think like that it could have just been like you maybe you want that's what you wanted to see, so that's what you saw? Maybe that's what they projected as Earth or whatever. Maybe you might have not even been there. Like, did you get like a sense of scale to where like, oh, this is definitely or I'm not seeing what I want to see. This isn't like me telepathically
Mhm.
projecting this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Versus,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Um, there's a possibility. I took it at face value. Um, like I said, at times I could kind of catch them in a form of deception, almost like I was talking about with the that my son
the sun,
apparently
yeah,
who's
with the who was burned.
yeah, like, so I could kind of catch them in deceptions, and I could tell when they were putting the disguises on, but that's pretty surface level stuff. So the possibility definitely exists. I just kind of take it at face value, though. The rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, and
It's
that's
hard to
interesting to
know.
me. It is hard
Yeah,
to know. Now, I'm
it's hard.
wondering, I'm wondering too, like with the astral projections, like so you end up in a almost like a receiving area, and it's like it
Yeah,
makes me think that. So
yeah,
initially, maybe they have these that you can
yeah,
go to, like if you know the right things, or if you
yeah,
can condition yourself, like maybe you're on the world, and then
yeah,
maybe that, like you said, it's not necessarily it's our soul or whatever is going in there,
yeah.
and there's still some type of what do you call it? Uh,
Like an acclimation
decontaminate.
process.
Yeah, acclimation, decontamination, like a like
Yeah.
a like a like a
So
pressure thing.
saying like
You got to
first time you
decompress.
asked you, I've
Yeah. So that's the weird thing. So the first time I didn't have to stare at this window, okay? But then for the next handful of times, I had to stare at this window, and just like you mentioned, it seemed like a waiting room. That was kind of my feeling.
have you
Like
ever
I'm in a
tried to
waiting room.
draw any or like
Ah, no, I'm a
oh interest,
pretty bad artist to tell you the truth.
but you're
Uh,
If I
because
could, I would.
been talking
But
like as you've been talking, I've been on like I'm just
oh, really,
yeah
yeah,
it's they're like stick figures. I'm a
Yeah,
visual kind of guy, so I would
yeah.
be
Well, that's
super
awesome.
interested to see your
I'd
That's
love to
minute
know
I
detail.
too. I'd love to know too, based on not only that, but like based on just like it seems like you said, sometimes they're surprised when we wake up. Like it will like I
yeah,
wonder if one of the things you said was very interesting is like there's a time difference, between
yeah,
like when you're leaving your body versus. So like it seems like you either you willed yourself there or
hmm
they were already on some type of same vibrational understanding with you, and so you kind
yeah,
of either way, I mean, I can't see a way that you didn't basically just will yourself there, and they in either way they kind of accepted you there the first
yeah,
time. And it may have been even one of those things where like they knew and they had already a receiving area prepared, and that's why the person was like, well, would you like to look around? And it seems like here's the thing that's very interesting to me, okay,
yeah,
about that
yeah,
is that
yeah,
it seems like they knew you were coming almost
yep, yep,
based on that. They knew you're coming and they received you in a very
yeah,
convenient way. And not only that, but steered you around their areas. And because you said that kind of
yeah.
shifted when you went to the next, when you left that first initial area where there really wasn't anything there, was there? Like you said,
No,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So it
exactly.
seems like maybe they had somebody there waiting, and all right, this is where we're going to receive him, and then they shifted you to wherever it
Yeah.
was that they were going, and then they kind of gave you the tour, quote unquote tour.
hmm
But I
hmm
mean, it doesn't seem like there was like you had a lot of agency in that initial tour. While they showed
That
you
that
wonders
yeah,
and kind of blew your mind,
yeah.
you didn't have any agency, did you?
Man, that is that's exactly how I describe it, and we didn't get there, but I did not have agency throughout all of those 40 encounters. I
Really?
had no agency. One on one occasion, I asked to be shown something and was taken there, but every single time I arrived and they had an agenda. They had something they wanted to show me every single time. And it was typically just one thing, right? Like the first day I got there, they showed me this nursery,
Right.
okay? The second day, they showed me these tubes. Hey, there's souls in these tubes. The third day, they showed me this doctor. Hey, the doctor's working on these souls. Every single time, like they had an agenda, and I did not have agency. That's an absolute perfect way to describe it. Great
So
observation.
what was the thing that you requested to see that they took you to?
Oh God, I'd have to check my journal. I can't remember.
Okay. Don't worry
It
about
was
it.
like it was like the day before I went to a room, and I got there, and I said, "Oh, can we go back to that other room?" And then that was the
Oh.
time they agreed. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So was there anything you think that like was impactful? Was there anything you understood that really had an impact on the world that you saw in there? Or was it just like did it was because I don't want to. I'm gonna admit it. I'm kind of I'm a skeptic, but
Yeah.
I'm a skeptic in the regards to it's not that I don't believe people have these encounters. I
Yeah.
am skeptical of the motives of the
Yeah.
beings,
Yeah.
And so when I look at
Yeah.
these things, like I'm thinking about, so why was it? He shows up in this area. It seems like they knew he was coming and they
Yeah.
kind of usher him around and they show him all these wonderful things. But like, is there any substance to what they're showing him, or are they just showing him things to kind of allow him to get their story out there, almost like are they
Yeah.
doing like is this like an alien? This might sound bad, but it's like an alien propaganda mission. I mean, for the most
Sure.
part, with like, I mean, it seems like a lot like they're doing a lot of tag and release type stuff, and then
Yeah.
they're I don't doesn't seem like you were in any position to really offer or consent to having your DNA taken and turned into
hmm
other sons or however they
Yeah.
did it, whether
Yeah.
they did it the old fashioned way, not to be crude, or whether they took it
Yeah.
out of your ear or however they did it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
these are the questions that make me wonder. I don't want to say they're
Yeah.
scary necessarily, but it's like, all right, so this is a wondrous, amazing experience that you had, right?
Yeah.
and
It
and,
was.
and these are like really wild, but at the same time I'm like, wow, like they allowed you to basically astral project and go to these places. And so like anything else, I'm wondering, like, where is it
Yeah.
really, what
I'm
really
sorry. Can I
happened?
pause you for a second?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
son
absolutely.
is ringing the bell.
I hear it, yeah.
Falcon, come in.
What do you think, Brian? Think there's anything sinister there?
Sorry about that. Yeah,
No worries.
yeah,
I
they're
could
coming
see
home.
that perspective. Like I'm kind of like Pete, taking it at face value, what it is. Sure,
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that has to do skeptic of things that you don't know, or you're.
True.
It's very
yeah.
like human trait, to such a
Falcon.
celestial experience. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
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 it's really
definitely.
hard to say.
Yeah,
it's a really good
just a minute.
point.
Okay? Just a minute. I'm talking to friends. Okay, hang on a second. Okay. Yeah, I agree too. Like, I there's I don't I just yeah I take it at face value, but I keep my mind open that it could be a deception. There could be a reason for it. Like at the end of the day, um, I didn't get any powers or anything from going up there. Right?
Right.
They didn't. I'm not some psychic healer, or no, they didn't tell me anything that could change the world.
No,
They
you
just
still
showed me.
practicing your astral projection? Are you still doing
Yeah,
this?
yeah. So I stopped at 40.
Uh
I
huh.
stopped at 40 last year, and then I wanted to take a break for a while. And just in the past month, I've started up again. I've done it twice.
Have you
I'm
ever
trying to do something a little. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
like tried to astral project with somebody else in the room,
Great question.
physically take them with you?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. A colleague at work was interested in it. And so we both used the same audio track.
What's
We
the
did
largest
three.
group of people you've ever done?
Just that was the only time I've ever done it with anyone else. With one colleague at work. Yeah, we did the 3, 2, 1. We had headphones in, and actually our goal wasn't to go to a UFR. Our goal was to go to the pyramids. Okay,
Mm.
we did a 3, 2, 1, and we started the induction at the same time.
You
Okay.
guys, you were able to view his. I know nothing about astral projection. The closest
Yeah.
thing I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Once I realize I'm in a dream, I get really excited and I wake up. It's like
Yeah.
very short for me.
Yeah.
The whole thing is really fascinating. I have a million questions to what my body looks like, what my body feels like, the thing I do. I've like read a ton, Reddit about it.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
him tell us what the heck happened. I'm so excited to hear this. But tell us what happened when
So
you
what?
did it with another. Well, let me watch my
So
phrasing.
so I get down. No, that's cool. So I get out and I go to the pyramids, right? And like
Hmm.
I'm astrally over the Great Pyramid. I've been to the Great Pyramid in real life.
Oh wow.
I'm astrally there, and it takes me a second to remember that I was going up with a friend. Like it's hard to remember. You can go under with the intention of like something specific. Like it's sometimes it's hard to remember stuff basically. So I
Right.
remembered. Oh, my friend's not here. So I come back to where our physical bodies are, and I can astrally tell that his astral form is stuck in his physical
Oh.
body, right? And so I can tell, like in particular, like he's having a hard time with his hands and feet, and there's
Ah.
like, something's distracting him. And so I just like try, astrally, I see if I can pull his astral
I was
body
literally
out.
about to ask if you were gonna do if
Y-
you did that, if you're gonna try to pull
Yeah,
them
I did.
out. Oh no.
Yeah, and I couldn't. It didn't work,
Uh,
right? And so I didn't go back to the pyramid. I just stuck around and like I was trying to communicate with them the entire time. Like it
can I
was a
be
30
honest?
minute session and it
I.
was kind of frustrating. I just stayed there. When we came out,
Hmm.
I said, "Tell me what happened." And he said, "Man, I couldn't get out. Like my something was bugging me with like my hand." and it was like basically what I had intuited in the astral form.
One thing I want to say is that
Yeah,
it's actually I'm actually when like my thought the thought went through my head when you were talking about, oh well, I couldn't help him out of his body, is that
yeah,
that's good that we can't just go around yanking people out of their out of their bodies. You know what I mean? In our
definitely,
astral forms, that could be a problem.
definitely, definitely. That would it'd be awful. That'd be a nightmare.
So s-
Absolutely,
so it
absolutely.
seems like with your astral projection, your OBEs, it has a lot to do with like where you end up has a lot to do with your intention. Because
On
I've
one,
go ahead.
no, no. I just 100%, 100%. Keep going. Yeah.
Because the stories, the experiences that I've we've talked to a couple people about and experiences that I've researched myself, they seem to indicate that, like I said, if you want to kind of, if you, oh well, I just want to explore my neighborhood, um, you can do
Mhm.
that. If I wanna go to certain places, and a lot of it also seems like, um, we're only limited. Seems like
Mhm.
we're actually only limited by what our mind believes we're capable of. Because
Mhm.
I've heard some people that can't really leave their backyards, that can't leave
Mhm.
their neighborhoods,
Mhm.
and then I've heard people like yourself who can visit pyramids,
Mhm.
Himalayan mountains, the where the monks are in Tibet, and
Yeah.
like as you said, to these crafts wherever they are, like there's possibly other dimensions. So I think
Yeah.
that's a part of I think that might be an interesting part of our future evolution is getting to the point where, because I mean I'm sure there's some people that probably can't, like your friend who had trouble leaving his body. So there's all these
Yeah.
different abilities, and like I said, maybe humans going to the stars has a lot more to do with our minds than with crafts and spaceships,
Man,
or maybe
I
it's
think you
both.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. I think I personally firmly believe we have these latent abilities inside all of us. I think what I do isn't special. I'm not special in any way. I've just happened to have developed that skill within myself. And I think you're right. Like the secret to getting out there is going in,
Yeah,
right? Like going in ourselves to access like whatever you want to call it, like that the field, the universal consciousness, whatever it
yeah,
is, right? Like you're limited only by what you think you can do. And that's not to say like anyone can just sit down today, or even I can just sit down today and say, hey, I'm going to go visit Jupiter, close my eyes and go. But we do have these latent skills within us. You know, you nailed it. I think that's the secret to really getting to the stars.
yeah,
Isn't necessarily building rocket ships. It's it might have a lot more to do with using what we have inside ourselves.
yeah. Um, Well, I think that like maybe in the future, like we could get so deep. I know we planned on talking to you for about 45 minutes, and I think we've gone
Yeah,
much farther than that. And I'm gonna tell you the same, like this happens with pretty much every guest we have on, to where
I
like we
bet.
have these conversations, and we realize that not only could we talk for another 3 hours,
Yeah.
we could probably have these talks, on a regular basis, or at least two or three more times.
Totally,
Um,
totally. Yeah, it's like when like you meet when we connect with someone who's got the same ideas like you guys and I, you know what I mean? It's like you just start ripping off each other, and
yeah.
it could go all day. It literally could. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, you've really enlightened me a lot in regards to there's a couple things like I came into this, really want to focus on the extraterrestrial aspect,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna be honest, once we really got into the OBE stuff, it really makes me wonder if we're not talking to really extraterrestrials, but more likely extra dimensional beings,
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
definitely.
And I think that has
Yeah.
a lot to, like you said, like these are places and things that we can go, things we can experience with our mind
Yeah.
initially, and then maybe in the future, like we can have these whatever these constructs are
Yeah.
that these beings are in, and like I said, maybe I don't know, like maybe I'm the crazy one thinking that they're they have some motives or ulterior motives or whatever. But I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? I mean, because it doesn't seem like they're not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're hurting people. But at the
Mm-mm.
same time,
No.
if you click on the wrong thing on YouTube, there's alien hybrids that are alien lizard hybrid people that are doing, you know, um,
Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
stuff. But I mean, and
Yeah.
as I say that, I want to put a disclaimer on the
Yeah.
fact that I just said that because it's not fair for me to say that and discount other people's beliefs when we're literally here talking
Yeah.
to a man who is time
Right.
travel or possibly
Yeah.
time traveling, dimensional traveling, and going to craft. So
Yeah. I'm in
I
no
apologize to the
position
people
to.
that believe
Yeah.
in the lizard people. Maybe they're real. I don't know. Hell,
Yeah.
maybe that's the next person we need to talk to because I mean
Right.
there's got to be a reason for some reason why they believe this stuff. So, I mean, and
Definitely.
everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves, and that's one of the reasons I want to tell you too, Pete. And I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. Is
Yeah.
that one of the main reasons why I want to continue to do this is to
Yeah.
give everybody,
Yeah.
anybody who has a story or their truth, give them the opportunity to have that explored in depth,
Yeah.
from a serious and objective perspective. And I feel like I hope that we've done that for you today, especially.
Absolutely. And like you said earlier today, you asked me how, how the abductions, we started with the abductions, how the abductions had changed me as a person.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the nuts and bolts, it was this stuff that changed me as a person. And just exactly like you said, you know, nowadays, I don't laugh at channelers. I don't laugh at people that do automatic writing. I'm in no position to say that their experience is not real. If someone comes to me with an authentic experience, I wanna listen to it. And like you guys, and that's what you guys are doing. So I really appreciate the
Same way.
opportunity.
I feel like I can
Yeah,
only learn from in a
yeah, yeah,
There's something I
really,
wanted to at the end here, the tail end, before we, because obviously I think we're kind of winding this down. I'm trying to kind of summarize everything. I want you to get back to your family, go back to your
yeah,
son.
yeah,
On that note,
yeah.
I do want to ask, has there been any indication, like, have you had any indication from your son that he's been, experiencing these travels like without you now? Like, do you have like a camera set up in his room? I know I'm throwing a
Mhm,
lot out there, but I kind of want to summarize my
mhm,
last final thoughts. Have
mhm.
you said he must be about, I guess, 8 now.
Yeah.
Have you had these talks? Like, tell us a little bit, like, if you don't mind, if you want to
Yeah.
let us open that door up just a little bit to your
Sure.
kind of your personal family life. Tell
Sure.
us about that dynamic with your son now.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's interesting. So, like, my wife hates this stuff. She hates when I talk about it. Okay, literally hates it. Right? I mean, gets mad. So there's no, we don't have, I don't have, I want to believe posters up on the wall. We don't talk about UFOs in the house. I don't have, I have a
Does
library, but
she does
hmm?
she believe, or
No,
is it a she doesn't believe at all?
she thinks it's just a waste of time, a
Okay.
complete waste of time. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so we don't have, it's not, we don't have any UFO stuff around the house, anything like that. For the most part, my son doesn't show any particular interest in it,
Hmm.
nor do I try to introduce the concept to him.
right.
Right.
I'm so into it myself. As he gets older, he'll of course understand the kind of things that I do, but right now, he's pretty oblivious to it.
Right.
One time, there was an indication something was going on. When he was about three-ish, I was sitting next to him and I was scrolling on my iPhone looking at images of grays. And he turned to me and he said in, the 3-year-old language he could, he said, oh, Daddy saw that guy.
Oh
And,
no.
and I said, yes, I did.
Huh.
And he said, Daddy was scared. And I said, yes, I was. And all I could think to do was to look up a picture of a UFO. And so I pulled up a picture of I Google searched just UFOs, showed him the phone. I said, do you know what this is? And he said, it's an alien car.
Ooh.
But he didn't have any exposure to it, you know? Like, I mean, literally, I can't talk about this with my wife. There's
Yeah.
nothing in our house about aliens or UFOs except deep in my bookshelf where, you know, he never goes. So that
Huh.
was the one time where I thought, "Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe there's something going on there." But right now he doesn't show any interest, and
Okay.
I don't wanna taint his experience, or, you know, I
I
wanna
can
just,
completely appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Well, Pete,
I think that's for everybody. Let everybody come to it on their own terms.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, you know what? It's been a pleasure. I'll tell you what, like, I think that, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe in the future, if you'd like to come back, we'd love to have you.
Absolutely, I'd love
Um,
to. Yeah, we could talk about, we got a lot to talk about. I'm happy to talk about this stuff,
yeah, yeah,
especially with, like, you guys were like-minded, you're open-minded, and at the same time, I think it's good to have a healthy skepticism and
yeah,
ask the hard questions, get the hard details, you know? Like, we need that, but at the same time, we need to be open-minded and listen to
yeah.
people's experiences. And that's what you guys do. I really appreciate it.
Any final thoughts for just people out there listening to this show, just really, either struggling with some of the issues you went through, with the abductions or the OBEs, or just any final thoughts you want to put out there to the universe, Pete.
Yeah, yeah. What I think is, I just think people need to be open about this stuff. I know it's really hard. I've gone through several stages of that. I went through the stage of telling people that I was abducted, and then I went through the stage of, the hardest part was going through the stage of what I'm doing right now, talking about the astral projection. I was afraid I was going to get kicked out of MUFON for talking
Mm,
about this stuff. It's so crazy. But people accept it. And so I just, if anyone's having experiences, open up about it. You can contact people like the MUFON Experiencer Resource Team. We aren't the only game in town.
mm.
Find someone you trust. Talk about it. We just need to be open about this stuff. That's all I want to say about that.
Just why don't you give your website one more time for everybody too?
Sure, it's petewhitley.org. That's PETEWHITLEY.org. I have instructions for basically how I astrally project to visit the UFOs and the extraterrestrials. I also have a blog where I'm slowly putting up the journal entries I have for last year's 40 sessions. And
Oh,
I'm also putting up the sessions I'm currently doing, which have just been 2 this year so far.
fantastic. Well, you know what, Pete? We really appreciate you coming on here. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day with your family, man. And maybe we'll speak to you in the future.
I hope we do. Thanks a lot,
Okay,
guys.
have a good day. All right.
Likewise. Take care.